Okay, so we're at the bench here. I'm going to show you what I've been working on. So, the first thing that I did was I stripped the wash machine head down. Completely stripped it down. And once I did that, I sat down and I kind of came up with a game plan for the MFP, and this is kind of what I've come up with right at the moment. Obviously this is subject to change, but for right now this is what I've got. I have it in color. Unfortunately I don't have a color printer, I have a laser printer, so it looks better on a color photo. But in short, what we have here is it's built around the Glasslinger Telefunken electric circuit breaker, which is what we have shown here. I got the cycle timer knob right here, the reset button, the trip light, the on light, and a couple of the switches for that. Right here I have a 110 outlet that's controlled by the AC variac. Then I have the DC portion that's going to be good from 0 to around 750 volts DC. I have the DC volts gauge here. I've got the AC/DC variac here. I've got the amps for the DC here. I've got the AC meter here. That'll show the AC volts, kilowatts, as well as the amp hours. And that's basically on the AC controlling this outlet, as well as over here these AC out. That way if I need to hook up to something I want to run AC to and I don't want to plug it in, I can actually run leads to it. Then I have a frequency counter here. I've got the frequency counter out here. I've got my signal tracer down here. I've got the speaker for the signal tracer right here. I've got my dB meter right here, and I'll show you that here in a minute, as well as the inputs for that. I've got a component tester here, and I've got my DMM here. I've got dedicated DC out voltage 3.36, 9, and 12 volt here with the switch for that and the common. And then I've got my signal chaser, not the signal tracer, my signal chaser here. The out for that, indicator light, and the on-off switch. And then this is the on-off for the DC out. So that's kind of what I got right now. That's what I want to work around anyway, and whether it turns out looking like this or not, that's my start. So we'll see what we got. But for now, let me show you what I have got done. So the DC meter, the dB meter, this one here, I'm going to show you what that is. So I have a Weston dB meter. Looks like this. Okay. And it goes 2 to 50 volts depending upon how you plug your wires in. Now this is an antique, this Weston. This is a nice little meter, and it has the instructions back here on the back and all that. When I got it, it actually, the bake light was broken right here. It was actually pretty ragged. But I had taken it apart and I had put a new 0.01 capacitor in here like it was supposed to have, and it actually works quite well. So since it was already broken anyway, and since, let me show you, since it pretty much fits perfect right here, that's where I'm going to mount it. But I needed to be able to get the leads where they belong. So as you see here, these are in color. You'd see these are different colored wires. Here's the cap. I got the cap terminal, I've got the common terminal, and then I got two 10 and 50 volt terminals. And what that basically does is go with this, the condenser, common to 10, 50 volts. So what I did, I didn't want to destroy this meter, because as far as I'm concerned, this is a piece of history, and I didn't want to destroy it. And after I'm gone, if somebody decides they want to tear my stuff apart, they can tear it apart. So let me pull these screws out right here. I only put 2 of them back so I could take this apart and show you. So let me pull these screws out of this, and I'll show you what I did in here. So I'll just quick pull these 2 screws out. It's a very simple device inside, and it was not hard at all for me to change it around a little bit so I could make it work. Alright, so here it is. Like I said, a very simple design. There's the new cap that I put in there, but basically the wires go from the terminals down to the meter. So what I did was I just tied into each one. So for somebody to put it back to original would be very easy in the future. And then I ran the wires over and made my little harness. So that's what's going to go on the MFP as far as the dB meter. And I'll just go like that, and then I'll run each of these wires over to a banana jack as shown in the drawing here. That's the plan. Let me get the screws back in this. Okay, back on there. So now let me show you what I did. I printed this bracket off on my 3D printer. It's going to come up behind it. Pretty much got the depth perfect on it. And that's going to, then I'll drill 2 holes in the face of the panel, and that will hold that in place. So that's what's going to go on with that. So that is that. Now we'll set this out of the way. Since that's done and ready to install, I printed a couple of bezels for the DMM, which I don't have yet, but Doug was nice enough. I got the same DMM that he got. I like that black face with the white digital numbers. So that's coming, and he sent me his file for that so I could print it off. And I got my transformer. That's ready to go. I've identified all the wires. I know it's what. I'll get that together. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is I went ahead and I marked this for my 5 plugs. These are my banana jacks. They're not super high quality banana jacks, but they'll get the job done for what we're trying to accomplish here. This is going to be for the dB meter. So I took my straight edge here, lined them up, I put them each an inch apart. That should give me enough room for the jack as well as a description by the jack. So I just need to punch mark these. And I have me a trusty block of wood here, and that's what we will use. I can get this thing punch marked. And it don't have to be perfect. It just has to be close. I don't make anything perfect. Perfect isn't my middle name. There we go. So that's those. Those are in there now. It's a little dented looking, but it'll be alright. I just got to drill them out. First holes. Now let's get the next holes. I gotta get a bit. It'll be right for that. Alright, let's just do this. Alright. Yeah, perfect fit. Alright. There we go. There's the first one on there. Let me get the rest of them on and I'll bring you back. Okay, I got them in there. They look pretty good. So now the next step is going to be to get the actual meter in this. And so I've got it here. One thing I noticed that I had forgotten was I didn't allow for the wire to come through, so I drilled a hole in it. So now it's just a matter of me feeding my wires through here. And the shrink wrap I got on the wires holding them was just to kind of hold everything together till I did what I wanted to do with it. And it's not shrunk wrap on there yet, other than the one right up by the meter. So we should be able to do this and get it to go on there just like that. Perfect. And it's pretty much centered over the meter so that it will hold it in place. Now, the other thing I didn't allow for, but I'm not going to let it bother me because it'll get it nice and tight, is I should have dropped this down about the thickness of this raised portion right here, but I didn't. Also, just barely touches on this, so I'm going to notch this just a hair right here and right here. So let me get this notched, and let me get these two holes marked and drilled, and we'll get this in place. Bring that down a little bit like that, and then we'll bring this one up a little bit. That looks pretty good right there, I think. Let's see how she fits. Looks pretty perfect. Pretty perfect. My hole is just slightly smaller than this edge here, and I can either go live with it or I can try and open that up some, and I'm not sure I have a good tool to do that with. Let me come back with this. Okay, so I got the dB meter all mounted in there. I used the little hex head type screws. I like those. I like the way those look. I'm going to try and do that a lot in this MFP. You can see the various colors I put on there for the 50 volt, the 10 volt, the 2 volt. That's the normal common, and that's the capacitor or condenser. I'll flip it over. I'll show you what I got here. So there's the bracket holding it on there. And so here's my cable, and I'm probably going to bring this up and cut them to the proper length and get them all hooked up. I haven't shrunk any of the heat shrink yet, so I can pull it all up other than this piece right here. But I'm going to get that hooked up and I'll bring it back. Alright, so here's what we got right now. Got all my wires all put on there really nicely. I think they turned out pretty good. And then over here I have found a speaker that I am going to use for the signal tracer. This is actually a 4 ohm permanent magnet speaker, and I need to have 8 ohms. So I added a 4 ohm quarter watt resistor to it, and now it measures 8.2 ohms, and so it should be good to go. And I'm going to mount it right about here, and that should work well. So let me get some holes drilled and see if we can get that thing in there. Okay, so here's where we are right at the moment. I have got my speaker mounted. Now what you will notice is I used these flathead screws instead of the hex head. Now these hex heads were like sheet metal screws, and the way the speaker is made, I have to use a nut. What's on here right now is temporary. I'm going to show you why. I've got this great big huge container of flathead screws and wing nuts, and these are all aluminum. Screws aluminum, heads aluminum. Got tons of them. This is going to work good for mocking this up, but when I'm ready to really assemble it and I take this outside and paint it the way I want to paint it, these are going to get changed with little flange head hex screws that I can put regular nuts on, or even the wing nuts. I just want them to look like hex screws from the front. So anyway, speaker's in, and I put the ends on just so it'd stand up on its own. I still got to make a bottom for it. Also, I found a grill cover for this. So what I'm going to do is 3D print a bezel that this will go into. It's got little tabs that I can leave slots in the bezel to push into, and then use the screws to hold the bezel in place. I'm going to print that up, and we'll have that. Other thing I did was I used one of Doug's STL files and printed myself one of these just to get an idea of what I needed and make sure it was going to work with my unit. I didn't put any holes in it, but I'll just drill these holes, and then once I know what I need for the other things, I can put the holes in at the thing. It actually fits perfect. Proper angle and everything. Thank you, Doug. Making my job much easier. Okay, so I printed out this bezel, and this had little tabs that stuck down, so I made the holes for the little tabs, pushed the tabs through, bent them over, and now we can install this. I'll get that done, and I'll bring you back. Alright, well there it is. I'm happy with that. Turned out really nice, actually. And I'm actually kind of digging on these flathead screws too. I think I'm going to keep everything the same, so I think I'm going to go ahead and pull these out, drill the holes a little bit larger, and then go with the same screws. I mean, geez, I got enough of them, right? Well, I got several hundred in there. Might as well use what I got. So my digital meter showed up today. There it is, and according to my plan, it's going to be sitting like right here. So I need to get this hole cut so I can look at getting that put in. Okay, so I got my air nibbler out, and we cut the hole out, and it is pretty darn close. I mean, it might not be perfect, but I think that we're close enough to trial fit and see what we get. Let me get that meter apart and see how it fits in that hole. Well, it looks like a perfect fit. I didn't need that little piece of notch right there, but on the inside there isn't nothing touching anything. Let me get the bezel on it and see what it looks like. Okay, so here we are right at the moment. I got the meter installed in there. I got the speaker for the signal tracer installed in there. I've got the decibel meter and all of the jacks installed in there. And that is pretty much this half of the MFP. So now we move over to this half, and I've got nothing done yet. But let me show you what I have planned, because I got this all drawn out. I actually had two sets of layout. The top set of layout was my original plan, and because of the hole right here, I thought that maybe that would help me with the frequency counter or something like that. I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, I redid it, and I moved the frequency counter from here on this one over to here on this one. Everything else is pretty much laid out the same. I moved the controls for the electric circuit breaker from this side up here to over here on this one, so they're going to go right here, or that's the plan anyway. The more I look at this, it looks like I may have more real estate over here, but I think what I need to do is go ahead and get my variac in place along with the 2 meters for it, and then my outlet and my meter for the AC, for the variac for the AC. I need to figure that stuff out. I may rearrange this a little bit here. This may be the optimum place to put my outlet, actually, since it's already cut out. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So let me take a look at this and see how I want to do this. That might be the perfect place for the outlet. The meter does work. Let's see if it comes on. There it goes. Yep. So that's that piece. Once I get this stuff over here figured out and kind of the locations, I think what I'm going to do is kind of sketch them on there and see what looks like it fits the best before I start cutting a bunch more holes. I'm only going to have the holes that are required in this one. I'm still making face plates for them, but I think I'm just going to, I want to maintain as much rigidity in this as possible since it doesn't have the middle brace in it any longer. But that's what we're going to do. I think that's what I'm going to do next. Let me see what I'm going to figure out here, and I'll bring you right back. Okay, so here's what we've got right now. So on this sheet here, on the bottom one, both of them actually, I've got it over on this side. I've got the variac on this side here, and I've got it centered. But I was looking at the bracket that it actually came with, that it was mounted to, which is this one. And I think that what I've decided I want to do is move it down low, cut the bracket off right here, shove it over like that, and keep it low and over. And then I'm going to cut that bracket off right there, bend it slightly just so that it is resting against that, and not that it matters, but a little added additional strength. And then cut it off right here. So I just have the flat plate portion. When I drill this right here for the variac to go in there, it has a locating hole here, which is nice. It's got the locating hole there, and everything should be good. I think that because this bracket fits good against this edge, probably just the nut holding the variac in place would be sufficient to hold this. But I think I left myself enough room that I'll probably drill a hole here and here for those straight head screws I've been using. And then it'll definitely go nowhere because it'll be a 3-point mount at that point. It'll be those two and the one big one for the center. So I think that's what I'm going to do. And then I think what I'll do is put the volt and amp meter one above the other above it. And that way it'll be easier to read it too. The knob will be down low and the gauges will be up high. So I think that's the way I'm going to do that. So it'll be here, and this one will be up here. I think that'll all fit. Let me get this bracket cut and we'll see what we get. Alright, so here's the bracket. Got that bent. Got that drilled. I set it down flat. Shove it up. My hump here is sitting on my raised ridge. And right here we're flush. We're flat. That's what I was hoping for. So now we just got to slide this over as far as we can go, and then back a little bit, because if I remember correctly, the variac actually sits slightly oversized on it. So let's see what we got here. Yeah, not by much. Maybe a little bit. Sticking over a lot on that edge. Slightly over on that edge. Right about right here. I did even with the hole, so let's see what we have. Let me slide that over. I got this one right here. That would be dead even with the hole, which that's not a big deal actually. I can shorten that. So I think what I'm going to do, slide it over till it touches right there, and that's where I'm going to drill these holes. I'll drill that hole, and then I'll get my step drill, which I did find. It was in the drawer I thought it was, just didn't look hard enough obviously. And we'll get those drilled out. Step drilled that from the front side there, and I'm ready to place this in there. Got the alignment pin right there, Obviously these wing nuts aren't going to be where they need to be. Those were just holding the plate for me. Let's see if we can get this in there. It's perfect. Turn that wheel in a little bit, I think we'll be fine there anyway. Well, there it is. There's the bezel for the Variac installed on there. I'll have to make a knob for this. I don't have a knob for this Variac. That's not a big deal. So as you can see, I do have quite a bit more real estate over here. The frequency counter is not all that huge. The meters are not all that big. I think that I may wind up putting quite a bit more of this stuff over here. I might even get the electronic circuit breaker over here. I don't know. I'll have to wait till I get stuff traced out. But I think for the first video for the MFP, I think I made some pretty good progress on it. So I think that this is a good place to end part 1 of the MFP. So from Gregg at Gregg's Vintage Workshop, thanks for watching.